Hi everyone, welcome to the first ever episode of the Startup Playbook Hustle, a new segment of the podcast where I interview some of the best up-and-coming startups and founders on their journey, lessons and challenges to date. My first guest for this segment is Ainslie Williams, the co-founder of Qualie, a video-based online qualitative research company. Ainslie has spent the last 17 years honing her craft as a qualitative researcher before jumping into her first startup, Qualie, that within a year of launching has signed up some major clients as well as raising $750,000 in funding from former Xero boss Chris Reed, Unlocked founder Matt Berriman, and Catapult Sports chairman and Playbook media director Adir Shiffman. In this episode, we talk about how to ask the right questions, the importance of market expertise, finding the right foundation clients, advice for fundraising, and the benefits of a distributed team. Without further ado, here is my interview with Ainslie Williams. Hi Ainslie, welcome to the Startup Playbook Hustle edition of the podcast. Thanks for being our very first guest.
Thank you. I feel very special and honoured.
So Ainslie, for those people that may not be as familiar with you or your background, do you want to share a little bit about your story and let us know what you're working on at the moment as well?
Sure. So Qualie is the name of the platform. It's a startup that I'm a co-founder of. And it's Qualie because I'm a qualitative researcher and have been for the last 17 years. Absolutely love what qualitative research is all about, which is understanding the why behind what people do. Adds a bit of depth and a bit of thickness to what I suppose us otherwise kind of data points that are a bit impersonal. So after 17 years of working in the industry, Rob Margenberg, one of the other co-founders, came to me and said, like, there's a crazy idea out there that qualitative research has never really kept up with where agile businesses are heading. So let's re-engineer it to make it work, make it fit in timelines and also leaner budgets and quicker ways of working. So and let's fix a whole lot of other things wrong with qualitative research at the same time. So it was a bit of an audacious plan that started around 18 months ago, and we've been working very hard on it ever since.
Fantastic. So in terms of qualitative research, do you want to sort of break down what are some of the key things that you do and how you sort of work with clients?
Sure. So qualitative research is our main skill is to really get beyond the rational off-the-cuff response and to get a little bit deeper and dig deeper into what it is that drives people to think about a brand in a certain way or behave in a certain way. So our skill is it's more of art than it is science, I suppose. So we enable things, we use projective techniques where we can get people to project how they feel about things in different ways. And it's traditionally face-to-face, traditionally a very person-to-person thing. So, as I said, an audacious plan to take something that is quite touchy-feely and put it online. Simply put, qualitative research adds the why. So numbers or analytics or metrics can tell you who and when and how many, but they can't often tell you why. So if you're seeing conversion rates drop or sales drop, you know when and you know by who, but you don't know why. And that's where qualitative research and Qualie really sort of fills in the gap.
Fantastic. I feel like I've spoken about this a few times on the show, but I'm not a huge fan of startups doing surveys generally. Because, startups generally don't understand how to ask the right questions usually. So one of the common examples is, if my app saved you money, would you download our app? Great, 95% of people want to download our app. Or secondly, as you said, there's no real sort of deeper understanding in terms of why they're actually saying what they're saying or what the responses actually mean. What are some of the things that you've seen? I guess what are some examples of people doing that research and getting the insight poorly, and what are some examples of what it looks like when done well?
Yeah, okay, so we have this kind of expression, and I won't swear, but it's kind of crap in and crap out. If you ask a poor question, you'll get a self-fulfilling answer back, as you've just described. So, and there's lots of big companies out there like SurveyMonkey and other tools like that where you can write your own questions, and they can offer things as well. But with Qualie, we've taken, I suppose, combined more than 40 years worth of experience of asking questions and digging deeper, and actually baked that into the technology. So someone can use the platform and run a project who's not necessarily a skilled researcher or maybe not even skilled in understanding customer sentiment, but they know that they need that that answer. So we've baked our smarts into the question because we've run thousands and thousands of groups and interviews to know how to ask the right question to get something that is not just insightful but also, I suppose, has impact in a business. Because that's really where research has its power, I suppose, is that it's impactful within an organisation. So whether you're a small startup kind of working things out right through to enterprise, if you commission a piece of research and it doesn't have impact within your business, it doesn't persuade stakeholders or persuade you to make a decision, then the value is lost in research. So that's the real power of research, is making it impactful.
Sure. For anyone that's listening at home, whether they're a startup or even within a corporate environment, and they're looking to get further research done, what is a way that they can start asking better questions?
I think they have to be really clued into what it is that they're trying to understand, I suppose, and setting those objectives up first, because often the question that you want to ask is maybe not the right question, and also that how you ask the question may not be the best way to do it. So I suppose really knowing up front what it is, like what your business issue is, and often as researchers we start at that. People will come to us and say, I want to ask these 5 questions, and we often take a step back and say, well, actually, what's your business issue, and how are you actually, the killer question is, how are you going to use that information? How is that information or that insight going to plug back into your business? And if you don't have a good answer for that, or don't have a good solution to that, then you're in trouble. You need to go back to the beginning and say, what is my biggest business issue, and start at that high level and work down. Yeah,
it's really funny that you mentioned that. I was actually just meeting with a startup yesterday, and they sent through a survey to about 15,000 people.
That's huge.
And they got back their results, and they were like, great, but there's nothing that we can actually use this for as well, which is again one of the things that I kind of find with people, again, doing surveys, is just as you mentioned, really understanding what is it that you're going to be using that information for, and then essentially reverse engineering that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to start at the beginning, at the top, and say, well, what's the issue? So what am I trying to change about my business? What am I trying to solve? What am I trying to improve? And you really work down from there. So as a researcher, that's what we, when we take a brief, that's what we do. And I suppose at Qualie what we've done is we've developed project templates that kind of do that part for you. So if you know you've got a particular issue with conversion, perhaps, then we have a project template that helps explore that particular area.
Great.
Kind of taking that leap for you.
Fantastic. And so obviously, it's clear that you definitely have a lot of domain expertise and have and you mentioned that you've been in the space for a really long time. It's something that I've been kind of talking to a lot of people about as well, is like the importance of really understanding the industry that you're in when you're running a startup. How important has it been for you to have those skills when kind of starting out Qualie?
Oh, hugely important. I think working in something for so long, you see really clearly what the issues are and the issues that you're trying to solve. So not just for all facets. So not just for clients and businesses, but people also taking part in research. So you have a really deep understanding of what the issues are and what the pain points, I suppose, are. The other part is because we're building a brand new methodology in this space, we needed to intimately understand the methodology that we came from to be able to say, well, that's what's wrong with it, so we want to improve it in this way. So hugely important for us. And also, having connections to the industry that we're looking to evolve, let's say, rather than disrupt, but evolve. Being able to work really closely with our foundation clients and deliver briefs for them and kind of learn the limits of the platform as well. So having that those relationships in the market has really helped develop the product to date.
And this is your first startup?
It is my first one. It is.
I guess what instigated you on a personal level to kind of take that leap and jump into starting Qualie?
Yeah, it's a good question because I've reflected a lot on that over the last 18 months. So what am I doing with myself? Historically, I've always worked in really small agencies and pretty new agencies. So I think the startup gene was there and it just hadn't triggered yet. So around 2.5 years ago, I started to just think, I love research. I love talking to people. I love understanding what makes them tick. But the format in which I was doing it just felt really old-fashioned, really antiquated. You know, I'd fly from Melbourne to Sydney and over millions of people to talk to a group of 8 people in one room, maybe 2 groups of 8, and then fly all the way back. And I just thought there's got to be a better way to do this. And there were some issues with qualitative research as well. People don't like dominant respondents, so they're the people that shout over everyone else in a group. Or always seeing the same faces over and over again. So it was time to shake things up. I didn't want to leave research. I love it, but I wanted to do it in a new way, do it in a way that made sense for businesses today and the pace in which business operates.
Sure. And you touched on that you've got a few sort of cornerstone clients on board. What was it like sort of getting that early traction in for Qualie as well, and how did you sort of approach that and go about that?
So we did obviously a huge amount of testing up front, and getting clients on board was really important to us because we wanted to, you know, having a lot of experience in the industry meant that we knew the sort of briefs that we needed to be able to deliver against. But that only gets you so far when you need to start, particularly if we're building a self-service platform for the future. We really needed to understand really deeply how clients were going to use us and think of us. So we approached, I suppose, our network in the market to see who wanted to be brave and jump on board with us. And although we're solving some of the really kind of big issues that everyone sort of nods at with the industry, it really does take a brave client to step into this space. We had a lot of experience in research, and we were growing our experience in turning that into a platform. So it takes a really innovative client who's really feeling strong headwinds in the industry to jump on board with us. So, it was very clear from the start that there was going to be a mutual exchange of value. So as much as we were still testing and learning and building with them, they were also getting, you know, great insight back to the business that they hadn't seen in that way before. So it was a real partnership.
Sure. And obviously there's, you know, starting a business from scratch is extremely difficult. What are some of the challenges that you've faced that you potentially weren't expecting going into it?
Well, it's funny you say starting a business from scratch, because it's only just dawned on me in the last week that the reason why this feels like such a mountain sometimes is it's not just a new business, but it's a brand new way to think about qualitative research. So it's almost a brand new methodology. So having 2 news in the way or to push forward is challenging at times. I suppose having always worked in small agencies, it was always a hands-on deck kind of environment that I had been used to. And I think more than ever as a startup, you're across everything, absolutely everything. And some of the personal challenges, I suppose, are learning new software packages like Xero and working with Atlassian's tools to help kind of build software essentially. So there's some of the personal challenges of stepping into the technology world. The other thing as well, I suppose, qualitative research is a really human, personal, touch-to-touch kind of thing. So the proof of concept that we really needed to prove early on was, could we remove that face-to-face component and still get people to care and to consider and to articulate back in very short video snippets. So being able to craft a participant experience that enabled that was... yeah, it was trial and error at first, but we cracked it early, and that's when we thought we're onto something. Now how do we kind of flesh this out? And some of the other challenges, I suppose, is, as I mentioned, some clients, not everyone's an innovative client, and not everyone wants to take that leap with you. So while we have a lot of interest from clients and they kind of all nod, it takes a real brave client to take a leap with you, certainly. So they're probably the bigger obstacles, I would say, is just finding that sweet spot. And I had some advice early on from a VC that I'd met early on, and he said, look, although you're working with clients to build the platform, really zero in on the clients who are going to be innovators themselves. Because if you're building a product for an innovative company, then your product is going to be more future-proofed than trying to drag a company that culturally just maybe isn't ready for Qualie just yet. So look to the future and look for those innovative companies to build with.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic bit of advice. Obviously, you know, a big part of overcoming those initial challenges and getting over the the first few bumps is having the right sort of team around you as well. You've got a pretty stellar team. How did everyone sort of come together, and how did you sort of start this?
Yeah, sure. So it was Rob Margenberg, who's also a qualitative researcher. We'd worked together about 10 years ago, and came to me with the beginning of the idea, and we kicked that around for some months. I think he built the first version of it in Weebly. So it was a really super MVP clunky platform. But that's why we did that early proof of concept. So we kicked that around for a little bit, and Adir Shiffman, part of the same family network with Rob. So once we got to a point where we thought we're onto something, we can do something with this. We needed a developer. We needed to shift off Weebly to be able to run this a little bit more smoothly and build a proper MVP that we could actually put in front of clients, at least foundation clients. So Adir Shiffman introduced us to Steve Ford, and they had worked together previously on a different startup. So in some way, shape or form, the four of us have all worked with one another at some point. So we do have a really strong team. Rob and I have really deep domain experience. Rob's also had other startups within the industry and outside. Steve, obviously, and Adir Shiffman is a popular character. So we that's kind of how we came together, and everyone's got a really clear role, I suppose. Although Rob and I are both domain specialists, we come at the qualitative sphere quite differently, and we have kind of different skills and strengths. So we might be unusual to have two domain specialists, but we complement each other really well. Adir is brilliant corporate advisor, if you like, and also kind of a fortnightly man in the business. And Steve has also been great at building the MVP product, and then once we got funding, was building out a really strong developing team. So it's interesting because you take qualitative research as really human and you mix it with code and algorithm, and it's a really audacious smash of two sides of your brain, if you like. So there's been a lot of creative and positive tension, I suppose, coming from real data analytics people to real kind of touchy-feely emotional people along the way, and that's how Qualie was born.
Fantastic. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen from the podcast and from my own experience is that once you start getting the right components in there, like the right team, everything starts sort of gravitating towards you. And part of that has been, obviously for Qualie, getting a couple of big name clients on board, but also you've attracted some really high quality investors on board as well to back Qualie from the early stages. Again, do you want to kind of share a little bit about that process for people that are potentially going through that process at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So definitely our experience in the industry helped us get those first early foundation clients who took a leap with us, which we're still doing work for now. Pleased to say they're still with us 6 months later, which is good. So having them on board was really important to prove that these big enterprise size, sophisticated clients wanted to buy the platform. So that was really integral to our story to investors. Adir Shiffman is super well connected and respected as well. So he put our pitch deck through the ringer quite a few times, although he'll say that we had a pretty easy run with funding, but it felt big for us. So it was really a case of kind of getting that pitch deck in front of as many people as we could, and then for us to meet some of those investors as well. So we had our Dragon's Den moments, if you like, talking about who we are and what we're all about. And qualitative research isn't always easy to understand for someone who works in tech or is a VC. So they were quite lengthy chats to kind of explain what we're all about. And having those foundation clients on board and their testimonials really helped us do that. And we were fortunate to raise more than we needed very quickly. So actually we slightly scaled up how much we took, which has been great because it's given us a longer runway than we originally had planned for, which is always helpful. Someone said along the way to us, it always takes you 7 times longer and 7 times more than what you're expecting. We haven't found that so far, but it's stayed with me.
Any advice for anyone who's going through that process in terms of what your learnings were, or something that worked well, or something that you would change for next time?
I think really being clear on what your business or your startup, how it's helping the current state of play. So if it's around, the classics are dropping costs, but if it's around speeding up a process and it kind of really explaining along the way, if you do it this way, it takes 5 weeks. If you do it this way, it takes 2 weeks. So really being explicit on where the leaps and gains are, I suppose, in the product was one key thing for us. And also, I suppose, our team was strong. We had really deep domain experience and also experience with SaaS and scalable tech platforms. So we had a really good blend of brains behind that. So get your team sorted. It's easier said than done.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you had switched off Weebly and were moving to a new platform. And I was just having a look at the Qualie website as well. And I think I mentioned to you that the brand was really surprising to me. I love it. Do you want to share a little bit again about the thinking behind Qualie and what you're sort of trying to create?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Because I said, qualitative research is such a human thing. Like often you're in someone's home or you're shopping with them. And so although we've built this great platform that's got algorithms and lots of processing built in and automation, we're always at pains to make sure that Qualie was human and came across in a very warm and engaging way, because that's what qualitative research is, and that's really important to the product and also important to the participant experience. So I think too often, I'm sure you have, and people listening to this have probably sat through boring surveys that go page after page, and really they just treat you as someone who clicks buttons. They don't treat you as a human. And so we really wanted to make participants feel like they were valued and we were really listening to what they had to say. Because at the end of the day, even though Qualie is performing the research task for you, it is actually a touch point of your brand. And why shouldn't that be enjoyable?
Absolutely. I think what kind of really strikes me about what you mentioned there was really focusing on who it is that you're delivering that for versus the other way around of what is it that I want to project out, which again, I think is a super important thing that a lot of startups and founders tend to overlook at the very early stages, whether that's through website or different sort of touch points that they have with their users. Yeah,
we wanted to always, no matter whether you were a supplier to the business, a participant in the projects, a client, that you found us human and friendly and maybe a little bit surprising. And that's kind of been the cornerstone of how we think about the brand. So it's human first, just driven by some amazing technology underneath.
Another thing that I wanted to touch on with you was that I believe that you had a bit of a distributed team around Australia as well. So, obviously one of the kind of big bits of advice that everyone will give you is, be as close to your founders as possible and just, so you can move really quickly. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, we had some people say, you all need to sit in the one room and eyeball each other and bounce ideas off. But you know what? There's things called Slack, and there's a great set of tools like Google Docs and Google Slides. So we just collaborate. We use the power of the internet and collaboration tools to make sure we're always online and chatting to each other. So yes, we have half of us are based in Sydney, and our development and head of tech, Steve, is sitting in Queensland. At one point last year, we were all scattered in different time zones, but through the magic of modern technology, we're all working at the same time and pulling forward. So we haven't found it to be problematic, and we also do still have regular catch-ups face-to-face, so we're not completely distant, but we do a lot of web chats. We see each other. We're on Messenger, so it hasn't been a problem for us so far. And in fact, Rob and I are often seeing clients or out talking to people like you, and so it doesn't make sense that we all sit in the one room anyway. We all kind of have very different roles for the business. So some are more desk-bound and others are more out on the road. So it makes sense that we can collaborate in the cloud.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spoke to Adam Stone from Speedlancer as well. And so he started off having a distributed team, and he was actually saying that he took, I think it was 3 weeks or a month off traveling, which helped him force, creating those structures where it had to operate without him being there. And I'm wondering whether almost kind of starting off at that point has helped you or essentially forced you to be better at communicating whenever you do have those sort of opportunities and putting in those processes so that as you continue to grow and, you're not going to have everyone in the same team as well, in the same room, it helps you kind of manage that process a little bit easier.
Yeah, and look, if there's one thing the team, we've got a team of 5 day-to-day, and if that's one thing that I notice about us is that we'll try something. If it doesn't work, we'll change it. So we were originally having, the Monday morning work in progress, what's on for the week meeting. And we found that because of the pace of our own business and how quickly we were making decisions and getting feedback from the market and needing to change, that having a one-off once a week, what are we doing this week meeting just wasn't enough. So we changed, okay, let's do our 5 minutes every morning at 9 o'clock. Everyone jumps on Zoom so we can see and talk to each other, and then off we go for the day. And so we're really good at saying, well, that's not working for us, let's change it. Or let's try this. Okay, didn't work, let's move on. So we kind of live and breathe a bit of an agile process on ourselves as well. And also, this is, everyone also has a life. So this is 90% of my life, but I still have 10% where I do other stuff as well. And so does everyone else on the team. So if it means that some of our founders who have children want to do school pickup, then they should be able to do that and not be chained to a desk. So we also have approached it in a way that it's super important for us that Qualie works, but also we're human and we have a life and there's other things going on as well. So we wanted to build flexibility into that process.
Fantastic. Ainslie, on that note, for anyone that wants to say hello, get in touch, find out more about you or Qualie, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can come to our website, qualie.com, or they can email us at hola, H-O-L-A, @qualie.com and find out a bit more about us.
Great. And since this is the Hustle edition, something I want to do a little bit differently is to get the guests on the show to give and ask. So for the people that are listening at home or wherever everyone's tuning in, if there's any way for people to help you with something, what can they help you with?
It might be a help that every single startup with an online presence needs, but we have such big vision for what the UI will be for the participant experience for Qualie, and finding someone who will take that leap with us has been challenging. So the shout out would be if you know of anyone who is a really innovative, forward-thinking, progressive UI designer, bring them on. We really want to kind of supercharge that experience and for participants and also clients as well, but to make this just an amazing experience. Why shouldn't it be? It should be enjoyable and it should be engaging.
Fantastic. Ainsley, thanks for coming on the show and for sharing Qualie's story.
Thanks for letting me be the first hustle.
Love it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the first ever episode of the Startup Playbook Hustle. You can find the show notes of my interview with Ainslie along with a curated list of tools and resources for startup founders at startupplaybook.co. As always, you can join the conversation through our Twitter account. The handle is @PlaybookStartup. Want to feature on a future episode? Shoot me an email at rohit@startupplaybook.co or fill out the form linked on the show notes for this episode. To celebrate the launch of the new segment, I've launched 3 episodes of the Startup Playbook Hustle. Next up is Nogga Edelstein, the co-founder and director of Urban U. So I'll see you at the next episode.